What's going on, guys? Welcome to the show. We're back. We're back with a full panel doing this on our regular timed night. Only one episode tonight. It is episode 4 of season 2 of Preacher, titled Viktor. We can't wait to break the whole thing down for you guys. Hang out with us. We'll see you in just 1 second.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Oh, it's the song from the show.
It's like we picked it.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
Back. Oh, I'm too fast.
No, I like it. This song was everything to me. And now it's...
And now we're back. For those of you that just missed it on audio, you know, we were just dancing to the song. It was pretty awesome. We're back. It's AFTERBUZZ TV talking Preacher, Season 2, Episode 4, Viktor. There's a lot to talk about. This show is rolling along, and I have to say I'm very excited. As you guys said last week, the action continues. They're not slowing the pace down. I feel like they're definitely giving us the show we wanted in Season 1, and we're 4 episodes deep, and I don't feel like we're getting fooled. I feel like, you know, this is the real thing.
Agreed.
This is real. Not going to catfish us, are they?
Feeling very rewarding already.
Definitely, definitely. As a huge fan of the comic book and also just of Season 1, you know, we definitely are getting what we want here. So, guys, thanks for tuning in. It is, as I said, Season 2 of Preacher here on AFTERBUZZ. I know there's been a little bit of a mix-up these last few weeks because the show aired on Sunday and then got pushed to Monday. And with the holiday, we had to do 2 at once last week. But we're back. We'll be here every single Monday, same time, same place. So expect us here if you want to check us out. Let's start with the panel. We have a guest panelist. I've worked with you before.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Lacretia.
Hey guys, I'm Lacretia Lyon. You can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one, and I just apologize profusely for not being MR Dave Child.
Nobody is MR Dave
He's
Child. And you know, this 4 episodes on the same panel. We still haven't actually been in the same room together, so I'm excited to work with you for the first time.
Yeah.
Matt Marr, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm happy to be here. You can find me at the Matt Marr, 2 T's, 2 R's, on all the socials.
And my man, what do you got for us?
What's going on, guys? It's Nate Miller. I'm glad to be here again. You can find me on all social media at DogLikeNate. And I would like to point out I am the one survivor that has made it to every after show.
I know, that's what I was saying.
So hopefully I can keep this strain going. That's right.
That's why you were my man this episode, because you've been holding it down. You've been holding it down every week.
Doing my best.
Yeah, exactly. And the resident comic book fan, so you've been holding that
That's
down
right,
as well.
yes. Well, Dave Childs and I, you know, had a great conversation last week.
Definitely watch the show. And guys, you can find me at Ben Bateman Media. My name is Ben Bateman on Twitter or Instagram or what have you. So let's talk about the episode, guys. This was titled Viktor. The character Viktor turns out to be Tulip's husband. Which is not, and I should point out, by the way, we will do spoilers at the end of the episode. So anything we do know that's comic book based, we always make sure to wrap around at the end and do kind of a, if you don't want to hear this, we'll talk about it at the end. But if there are things we know, we'll be vague about them during the episode. This is not about the comic book, it's about the TV show. So yeah, this was new information just in general. We didn't know this in the context of the show at all. And we did get Paul Ben Viktor. That's actually the name of the actor.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a classic character actor. He's shown up in like a lot of big time premium cable shows. So he's very well known for The Wire season 2. That's where I first saw him. Spiros. He's the Greek. He's a great character. He's in Entourage.
Yeah, that's where I know him from.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of other stuff. He's in a sweet movie from the 90s called Point Blank with Mickey Rourke. That's like
so good.
it's a horrible movie, but
Oh, I haven't seen that movie forever.
he's like a really, really flamboyant villain who's just totally outrageous. He's awesome. The movie's bad, but anyway, I was excited to see him because I like him in general, and I thought I just liked him being introduced in this episode. So that's where we start. Is that Tulip gets picked up because she's run off, and we have no idea what's happened.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't let us know. I mean, again, I've said I'm working on reading the comic because I was waiting to ask y'all if I would be spoiled or not. So someone who didn't know that I thought we weren't going to, we even kind of talked during the show, I thought we weren't ever going to find out what the hell was going on. It was kind of just a tease.
Yeah, it definitely did seem a little bit like the Carlos reveal from season 1 for a little while. That we were just going to keep talking about a part of Tulip's history that we didn't know about, and they were just going to keep dangling it. But in the end, I think this was just a vehicle to illustrate that like Jesse can just take people down when he needs to. No one's gonna stop Jesse when it comes to trying to get the Tulip. And B, also that there is more to Tulip's story than, again, just being Jesse's girlfriend. And I think they're really stressing that in this show, which is great. It's nice to see them develop her character like that.
Yeah, I think they've already put a lot of effort into making her interesting and mysterious. So I definitely am happy to see that it's coming to pay off and that we're seeing some progress in this story arc, and they're not just like dangling it for us to just be waiting on.
Yeah, and a lot in the comics is they sort of displayed Jesse as, you know, this guy who was sort of above her and she needed him and stuff like that. When I like how they portrayed Tulip on the show as being more of an independent woman, and yes, this does have to do with another husband, but this is something completely from Jesse, and that's what, you know, she often lacked in the comic books. It's great with the character now, and two, I like that it sort of established that Cassidy seemed more concerned about her being gone than Jesse, and that sort of ties in to. Is Jesse really good for Tulip?
Well, I think to play devil's advocate, though, I think a lot of that has to do with the amount of time that Jesse and Tulip have spent together and the things that they've been through versus Cassidy.
Yeah.
Could you have your high maintenance friends that are calling you and you're like, girl, you're going to be fine. They're like, tomorrow, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you all this advice. You're not going to take it. And the next week, you're fine. So I felt more of that from Jesse, that he was like, and he even said, like, this is how she is. This
she
is
can
what
take
she's
care of
going to
herself.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think obviously, and then we saw that kind of towards the end, how much he does love her. Where Cassidy, this is all new for him.
Yeah, also, but it feeds into Cassidy being in love with Tulip, which is something they're playing up, and they're making sure to play up. Yeah, talking about Tulip's history, I think it's great that they're doing it the way they're doing it. Without getting into super specific details, the way the comic book is set up is that they use specific issues to take you back in time for the most part to show you history, but it's not like this where like the history is connecting to the present so much. It's more like this is where Tulip grew up. This was her friend in college. This is how she learned how to shoot guns, kind of stuff. Ooh. And they're very self-contained little bits of history. They kind of do it for all the characters, but her very specifically. And I think in the end, it would have been a mistake to do that for this show. That those sort of what are those called? Ship in a bottle. Bottle episodes, I think they're called, where they just exist as like one story. So I think it's good they're connecting it to the present, and we're getting that connection. All of our characters, you know, it's all connecting up for the story. I do have to say I was a little bit disappointed we didn't get Hair Star back. I'm just itching for more Grail and more Star. He's like my all-time favorite Preacher character.
I mean, I think they definitely knew what they were doing, teasing him, and showing his face. So they're building towards something, and we saw a little bit of the Grail this episode, just a little bit, just a little reminder. But it's coming. Yeah,
so let's jump actually away from this for a second and talk about the Hell storyline, the Arseface, the Eugene storyline. They're not really referring to him as Arseface. Assface was thrown out there tonight, but he doesn't have a proper title that's like, he is just referred to as Arseface yet. He's still Eugene, he's still Assface, beating up Hitler.
Beating up Hitler.
Yeah, the Hitler thing. What do you guys make of the Hitler thing? It's so bizarre.
I love it because it just sort of came out of nowhere, but it's almost perfect because it's almost a big Bill Hicks joke. Like, to me, that's all I could think of. Is like, yeah, that Hitler really wasn't that bad, and you know there are things in his life that led up to that, and just sort of making jokes about that. That's what I grew up hearing. So it's funny that they're sort of going with that, especially being a comic that was initially, you know, based in Texas and things like that. But just having Eugene sort of befriend Hitler and then see the camera and be like, yeah, I guess I better screw him over.
I have to beat up Hitler. Yeah.
And it feels very supernatural to me.
You guys mentioned last week that you can see the Rogen humor at points.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's funny because like this feels so much like Seth and Evan sitting around and just being like, so he should be in hell. And Hitler should be there, and Eugene should just become, and Hitler should just be kind of a sissy.
Yeah, he's not a dick. He's like kind of apologetic.
And I was like, I was like, is Hitler like gay? Like I couldn't, which I was like, I don't want to know.
And they set him up. He's like, or else what?
Yeah,
he's like nothing.
And
he's
I love
just a fancy.
Yeah, I love that they're like, this is your worst memory.
Well, there's definitely some more. I think we were about to hit the turn. I'm guessing it's like he actually goes and presents his art and gets shot down or something, and then we see him turn into, you know.
Oh, I don't know.
Nazi
I don't know if you're right. I actually think that's totally possible that they're trying to make Hitler, like, make him out to be like a pansy, the most boring guy on earth, has no cause to do what he did, who's just the worst, and just like actually just like is this evil person. And like I think it's actually funny that they're doing it. It's just it's such a bizarre choice to put Hitler in the story.
It's kind of like not a patsy, but just maybe he was just the wrong person in the wrong place at the wrong time.
At least in the context of the show.
Yeah, if they're gonna like
what I told Dave last week in my predictions is that I think that the Hitler character is going to kind of lead Eugene down the path that he eventually turns him into the Arseface thing. So especially with this episode, with him in the end making the decision to start beating the crap out of him as well.
Yeah.
We can debate whether or not that's Hitler directly influencing him to make him bad, but I think there's more to. They've established too much of a connection and dialogue between the two of them for there not to, at some point, the cells open up again and them talk about like, oh, you beat me up. And it's like, oh, well, I have a feeling that Hitler's gonna be like, oh, you were just doing what you're supposed to do, kind of a thing, as opposed to making him feel bad.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's
Hitler's empathetic. Yeah, I think on this show. I think so.
Out of context.
Yeah. I almost felt like his face was like, do it, like to Eugene.
And just the minor details of like his mustache too in the flashback, how it's like all full and it's just like okay, and then you see it and it's all abrasively shaven and you just see the difference.
It's sweet that it's Noah Taylor playing him. One thing that I've really enjoyed is the bigger that shows like this get, where you have these premium cable shows and they become such a part. You start to see these classic movie character actors showing up in them. Yeah. Where in the old days of premium television, it was like, clearly that's a TV actor and that's a character actor in Michael Bay movies, and there's not going to be crossover. Whereas like, this guy was most recently like a big character in Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. Like he's a big time movie actor. So I love that he's playing Hitler. It's like that instant recognizability.
Well, and then Amy Hill, who's playing, sort of the warden of hell. She's a big time character actor. And that's what I love about this show, because I'm a big fan of any kind of character actor. I mean, Walton Goggins, anybody like that. I can't wait till he shows up. They've got to put him somewhere. But yeah, just the whole Hitler thing. And it's almost funny because his story is similar to like Charles Manson or something, where he really just killed a bunch of people because he couldn't make it as an artist.
I mean, he couldn't.
We can all identify with that.
And I'm sure they're going to focus just touch that. Yeah, they can't.
I can't touch that.
No.
I mean, well, they could on this show. I just love to me, it was just such a. What I love about this show, for me, as someone that's newer to, is that anything I anticipate with this show, they're going to actually totally change that. And so it just wasn't something that I thought like they would do. I'm interested, like I want to know who that woman is with the hair and the glass. It's like I'm thinking like history. I'm like, okay, is that Genghis Khan? I'm trying to like think who are all these like terrible evil people, and then when they had like the caveman who like couldn't talk, and you're like, oh yeah, people probably were really jerks then too. You know?
Yeah, I mean, just for the record, guys, because we are touching on like very, very offensive territory to some. If you don't want to have a sense of humor about this, this could be incredibly offensive. I am Jewish, had a bar mitzvah, both parents Jewish, so I'm on board as far as the could be offended. I'm just treating it as the context of a television show.
Yes.
And it's funny in the context of a television show, not to be joked about in real life.
Well, I feel like if somebody's just now getting offended by a preacher, then sugar, you're just
it's season 2.
You need therapy and figure yourself out.
The wrong show.
And two, it's written by 2 Jewish guys, so like they're meaning to make fun of Hitler.
If there's anybody who has like a make fun of Hitler pass, they've got
it.
It's them.
They've got a couple.
So let's talk a little bit about the power going out in hell. I'm trying to figure out what's going on and why. And so heaven and hell, obviously it's a huge part of the story, and you do get to see these like realistic interpretations of like, this is a real place, you can take a bus, you get there, and Eugene's not dead, he's just in hell. So one thing I was trying to figure out is so Hitler's dead, so he went to hell. All of these characters you assume are dead, they went to hell. Eugene didn't die and he went to hell, which means if Eugene in theory can eventually get out of hell, does that mean that Hitler can get out of hell?
I wondered that actually a little bit. But I don't know the answer to that.
I would say no. I don't want to speculate too much because this isn't the time for that.
Sure.
But I think that Eugene is related to the issues that are going on in hell.
Gotcha. Because he's in hell and he shouldn't be. There's things are screwing up.
And Genesis is the most powerful thing in the universe. I mean, it's sent so it could send anybody living dead to hell. Yeah.
Break different rules.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense.
And 2, I think it was very telling when she has the conversation about God not being there, that it may have to do with the fact that God is absent, Eugene is in hell, who doesn't.
You thought she was talking on the phone talking about God?
That's what I thought too.
Yeah,
he's missing.
She's talking about the saint.
Yeah, that's what I feel like the saint. Because she does mention God specifically, but I was like, could it be Saint or Lucifer or God? I mean, that was the thing, is there was a lot of just.
I'm pretty sure she's talking about the Saint of Killers. It's like a who let him out.
sort of
Is
thing.
what she said.
Well, that,
Yeah, 'cause
that
I know-
makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
it could be God, but that makes
Yeah,
sense.
it could be. Yeah.
I thought God too.
Yeah, it could be. I'm pretty sure it's the saint getting out.
Yeah, because that's the thing. And she's like, well, who let him out? And then, like, she's like, oh, God? Because that was the line where I was like, either she means, oh, God, he's out, or she's like, you know, oh, God, let him out.
She
Right.
says,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't she say Jesus, I think? I think she says Jesus.
She at the end
No.
she says Jesus. She does say Jesus because I remember like,
Yeah, because she
wait,
does
are they the
specifically
same?
say
I'm
God.
a bad
Maybe you guys
Catholic.
can,
I don't remember.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say we've got a cool comment here in the chat from Star Drew saying about how the prison setup is very much like Bogus Adventures. You know,
Oh yeah.
or
it
Bogus
is.
Journey. I mean,
I think it's a really good, way to
oh, it's fun.
depict it. Yeah, especially with the idea of like people having personal hells and stuff. So they're
Right.
in their own cells, and there's like a projector that makes them go through it over and over. Okay, it's like a way to ascribe some reality to some
To hell.
Yeah,
to
Yeah.
some
exactly.
abstract thoughts. I think
Agreed.
They did a good job.
Agreed. So that pretty much wraps up what's going on there. Let's move to the next part of the story, which I think should probably be Cassidy and Jesse trying to chase down their old man God. And, and meeting Teddy Gunth, talent management, who was a fantastic character.
He was great.
Yeah, he was excellent. And the like, you know, anytime somebody like a Seth or an Evan makes a show, it's like their ability to poke fun at themselves and poke fun at the studio system and actors and auditions. It's obviously all there. And us in Hollywood, we're gonna get that so much more than your average watcher. But it was so good. It was so funny. Nobody watched these audition tapes.
Don't forget about the Frankie Muniz.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
yeah.
Too.
Yeah.
Not only is he there, he's himself.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was
It was
so
great.
good.
It was
Yeah.
great. I mean, like again, they're making fun of Hurricane Katrina. Like I'm just like going, like I'm going to hell from watching this show. I'm speechless about that because Seth Rogen, man, I just like, wow, that's some balls, dude.
I love the dude's like, like what's he say? Like, I something prostitute. Now I'm a prostitute.
Now I'm a
I used to hire
prostitute.
prostitutes. Now I'm a prostitute.
And it's just, again, I mean, that's what I like of somebody that I think, you know, things. I think that we, you know, as a comedian and somebody like who is gay, like I make gay jokes and stuff a lot of time because it, you know, it's kind of like I love that they're showing that it shows people, you know, that hey, this is everything is kind of up in the air, and this show is everything is up in the air. So I think it's such a it might not seem subtle, but as somebody who's kind of is a comedian, it is subtle to me because it's there's always this undercurrent that things are not always things will never be what you think they are.
Right. Yeah,
mean-
agreed. I mean, and look, comedy, guys. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Like, it's every comedian pushes the bar. So if you're trying to make a black comedy show, like they're gonna push the envelope as much as they can before they get.
Well, I mean, especially with the nature of the source material too. Like, it's part of the thing that made Preacher is that at that time, you didn't put that stuff in comic books.
No.
And if you did, it didn't sell.
Totally.
People didn't read it.
Yeah, and that was the thing, and that's why I loved Preacher growing up, is because, you know, well, I grew up in East Texas, so a lot of like that stuff I related to, but then the pop culture moments, which really spoke to me, and that's why I love they throw these little jokes in here that you didn't see before this, and you've got such good material. And too, Seth Rogen gets to kind of make fun of Hurricane Katrina because of all the jobs he's brought to New Orleans with this show and with This Is the End and all the other things.
And just
right?
like what you were saying was
Yeah.
true.
wow, I just completely lost my train of thought. What
It's
were
all
you-
right.
Yeah.
When she was talking,
What were we talking
she
about?
was talking about being from
I don't-
East
I just-
Texas.
I
East
just was
Texas.
emotionally moved about giving them all those jobs.
I know
He's
all the
such a nice
jobs he
guy.
brought to New Orleans.
Frankie Muniz,
Yes.
huge talent.
Yes.
Huge.
man.
I don't even know what he's doing now. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Say
The
it.
pop culture
Yes,
references.
yes.
That's what you said. Obviously, there's no Game of Thrones reference in the comic book.
Right.
But for
Yeah.
them to bring that into the show is perfect thematically for
Right.
the book. It
Yeah.
would have been in the book if it was there at the
If
time.
it's at the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
It's
Because
like
of
you
its-
guys were talking the Lord of the Rings references. It's like the same thing.
Exactly.
It's-
It
yeah.
just fits so well, and that's how you. That's when I watched in the show, and I'm like, all right, the people making this, they get it. They really love the book. So even if they take some liberties and they change some things, I know that they have the best intentions at heart.
It also what is smart about that show, like when Jesse did say Gandalf, and with it makes those characters who are not anything like us, but it makes them though relatable. Like, you know, in that moment, I'm like, oh, I totally would have said something like that too. And I think that's why we love it, because then we feel like, oh, we could sit and like have a drink with these characters, which is not. I've watched a lot of crappy, as y'all probably have too, sci-fi comic book shows where they try to make these people like relatable, and they do a terrible job.
Right. Well, it's very much grounded in reality. Like if we were in Texas, we would see them like driving by. Like they're not in an alternate universe or anything like that.
Yes.
They definitely establish that really well.
There's also a balance to making specific pop culture references, and I think you can trace this back to. It majorly starts in movies with Quentin Tarantino. That's like the cornerstone example. Is early on, like Pulp Fiction is like the Bible of that stuff. But then the problem was that in the late '90s and into the 2000s, that became such a self-referential style of movie making and script writing that every filmmaker wanted to do that. And you know, I guess to some degree, Kevin Smith also was a big part of it. Those two guys, and so that in the 2000s, like when people tried to write those characters, they were very flat. They were extremely like these. Do you guys remember the opening scene in Swordfish? You guys remember that?
Yeah.
And Travolta's giving the whole monologue about Dog Day Afternoon and blah, 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 blah. And it's like you watch that today and it's kind of painful to watch because it's just like so heavy-handed. Yeah. So when a writer now understands how to properly use these things and surprise you with the references, it's like Riverdale does this really well also.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant. It makes you laugh at exactly the right time in exactly the right way.
Because they make it really conversational and very relatable, because to me the character of Cassidy too is usually the one who does that, just like he sort of was in the comics, because he is sort of the Garth Ennis, you know, who wrote the book, character as someone who is an immigrant from Ireland, sort of experiencing American culture. So they're typically more likely to say reference a lot because that's how they relate to us. And I always like that he's the one doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, part of it what makes it so good is his delivery.
Yeah,
Cassidy's just been consistently on point, but this season especially, like, woo!
Yeah, Joe Gilgun's killing it.
Yeah,
he's killing it.
AJYT Abbott in the chat was just talking about the Game of Thrones reference. He loved that Cassidy poked fun at HBO and everything. That to me was my favorite scene in the episode.
Totally, I know. And
he just went with it.
Dinklage front flies business.
Yeah.
Nobody has that kind of money.
We're not made of money.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think continuing just the thought that I was having about the pop culture references, I think that this happens a lot of the time, right? It's like something starts out great, it becomes an oversaturation, and then you have to have a really, really smart creator understand how to take that concept and bring it back around to be subtle again. It's like audiences get too smart.
Yes.
You know, look at like John Wick and like Taken and movies like this that sort of came along and they like reinvented modern day action movies after 15 years of stale action movies because they got it. They were like, we have to be able to poke fun at ourselves a little bit, right? Like, because the genre got stale. I think everything is that
I think
way.
that's why Wonder Woman was such a big hit,
Yes,
actually.
agreed.
Because it like everybody's trying to make things real life, and you either got to go for it all now and do Deadpool and really go there, or you need to go back to like hopeful comic books.
Yeah, totally, completely. So so they're looking for this dude, and they find his audition tape. They talk to Teddy Gunther about the about booking. I also love that they for the second time. So Cassidy's like, Frank Muniz, huge talent, and then he's like, and then he says the guy's name. And he's like, oh yeah, huge talent. Talking about his actor, like it's the same thing. He keeps trying to sell the Cuban guy.
Yeah, it was. I also have to say, I mentioned this to you just for people because we watched this together, and before we watched the show, there's like some Disney movie with him on it, and I actually literally right before I literally was like, I thought, what happened to that guy? I haven't seen him in years. So I'm telling you. God wants us to watch Preacher.
I read something the other day about Frank Muniz. I think he was a race car driver, is what I read.
Yeah, he drove race cars, and he apparently had a stroke, some sort of condition, so he was
now I feel like
unable
a
to act.
jackass. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Middle, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad he's
Great
doing work
show.
then now.
Yeah. So we see the audition tape. We get the delivery. We actually see this guy be. So he gets shot so he can go to heaven. I was a little confused about what was going on. Were you guys totally tracking it? I was just a little bit like, all right, so that's not actually God. It's a guy that the Grail has hired.
Yeah.
No, it was.
I don't know who's hired.
It's like angels, and from what I got from it is that, if you recall, season one when they call heaven, so we know it's actually heaven. They use the God phone, whatever.
Right.
And then this person who's not God answers, and apparently is aware that God is missing and all of those things, especially when he freaks out. So the way I took it is that I'm assuming who are angels or some officers of heaven or something went, all right, either they knew that Preacher was going to call, and so that's why they went looking for a God replacement, or they just went, God's missing, we're going to need one eventually, and so they went
So they find this
on
guy,
a casting call.
They make sure he's good. They kill him so that he goes to heaven so that he can then film this thing in heaven,
Right.
And to the congregation in Texas.
Right.
And
Got it.
Two, I was really curious is how they vetted him. You know, did they look him up and stuff? Because, you know, was there any guarantee he was going to go to heaven? I mean,
Right.
yeah, that's where I'm like, you know, how they must have just really taken a chance. I mean, and if this guy went to hell, what were they going to do?
They seem pretty clumsy in
Yeah.
heaven. I feel like they
Yeah.
probably just rolled the dice on that one. They
Yeah.
would have just found another one if he didn't.
Yeah,
I
think-
wonder if they may have some type of override privileges of like, no, we're just gonna take him straight there. Like he doesn't have to get on the bus to hell. There's like a private jet.
Well, also in hell, that she's like, I'm looking over your hell file. In theory, maybe in heaven they can do the same thing. They can look over your
Yeah.
file one way or another to see if you're, you know, of sound body and mind for the pearly gates. So this guy ends up in heaven to be this dude or whatever. And then at that point, right after they've discovered this, Cassidy's finally like, you need to listen to me, Tulip's in trouble. And Jesse's like, what are you talking about? And I did love the line when he says, if you had a girl like Tulip, you'd be wasting your time. And he says, why? And he says, because she can take care of herself. But I thought like there was something behind that line where I'm like, you know, Cassidy hearing that, it's that like, you're not better than me kind of thing, right? Because I know that they're
I missed that. I mean, I listened, but I missed that. You're right.
I just felt it. It's like, even if he didn't mean it that way.
Yeah, it was a little.
Yeah, I know that Cassidy would hear it that way because they are building this. Obviously, Cassidy's so much more aware of Tulip. He's thinking about her all the time, and they're clearly building that into something. It's going to be relevant at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't get married. Yeah, totally. I think that the show, what I like about Cassidy and Tulip is that, again, because at first I thought, oh, they had, like in the first season, like, okay, they had sex. Now this is going to be a big thing. Is this going to be cliche? But they're doing a smart job, I think, of kind of breaking apart a little bit Jesse and Tulip and potentially putting Tulip and Cassidy in some type of togetherness, whatever that may be, where it would be somewhat believable to me in some ways why Tulip might become affectionate for him, because Cassidy is so concerned about her.
Yeah, one thing I think is interesting.
I don't know the comics though yet, so.
One thing I think is interesting is like, so part of me thinks when you plant a plot device seasons early and then you take like literally years to connect back to it, part of me is like, that's a good plan. And then there's another part of me like, have we all watched Breaking Bad? Everybody here?
Yes.
Yeah?
I haven't.
Well, all right. There's
Go
one.
ahead. I haven't.
Get out.
I haven't.
There's like the big reveal at the end in the final few episodes when
I know that.
Heisenberg's like, I was there that night, and that big reveal when he says the thing to Jesse. And it's like literally 3.5 years later, and this information has been around, and they connect it back 3 or 4 years later. And at the time, it's like, the only reason this works is because this is one of the 5 greatest shows ever made. So I care enough to remember that. If this was any show that was even a little bit less good, I would be like, oh yeah, I guess that happened in season 2. Like, that's like not normal. You don't normally care about shows that you watch so much that you're like, oh yeah, that one plot device from like 4 years ago.
But that wasn't. I get what you're saying. That comparison is just hard because that wasn't just a plot device. That was a big thing.
Okay,
big
it's
turning
That's a
point for
major
Walt.
plot
No,
point
yeah, I
in
think-
the show.
it's huge. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same thing in Dark Knight Rises when Alfred is like, you know, that night she said she was going to go with Harvey Dent. And it's like, callback, but like, is this really necessary?
Yeah.
No, I get what
I
you're
think
saying
that's a better-
because
Yeah.
I do the recap for Orphan Black.
Yeah.
And so they're starting to like bring some science stuff that we are literally like Googling when the heck did this happen, and it was like in season 2, and so it's like, okay, so you know, and that's still a great show. I don't think it's probably one of the top 5 greatest shows of all time, but so I'm with you.
Yeah, I
get
mean,
it.
I'm not saying it's unnecessary. I'm just saying I realize that they have planted this device now in season 1, and we're going to be sitting with this information for as long as we need to before they decide to use it, because they're obviously going to use it. They keep pushing the button every episode.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll happen sooner than later. I don't know.
Yeah, I have a feeling with the pacing so far that it is going to happen sooner or later.
I have a
which
feeling with
I'm
this season. Yeah.
honestly a little bit concerned by, because it feels almost too early. But given the pacing, and also because I do think there's going to be some backstory that they just have to cover at some point, that gives us some time. I don't know.
Let's
I think
save till
they can make it
predictions.
work.
Yeah.
Let's save the predictions to really talk that one through, but I think
Yeah.
that's an important point to talk through. So, all right, with the final portion of the episode is that Jesse does get to the house, And I love that the two guys are talking, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I just went overboard. I tried moose, I tried wax, gel."
What do all security guards talk about?
He's like, "I guess my follicles just gave." I was like, "Your follicles gave out, man? That's something that could happen." It's like that's just great
happens,
writing.
man.
I love it.
Gave up.
So
But you know what? I've heard that conversation. I've heard like
Really?
I've heard conversations like that before, so I enjoyed it.
So Jesse goes in, and this is one of my favorite moments in the episode because he just walks in. He's just like, "Let me in. Don't move. Stop. I'm going upstairs." And you're like, "This is what you would, in theory, do if you had this power. You'd be smart enough to just be like, boom, 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 get me where I'm going. Why would you mess around? Why would you bother talking to people?"
Plus, he also thinks that the Saint is not following him anymore.
Right. So, but he does get upstairs, and he gets whacked in the head by our boy Pat. Right, Pat.
Yes.
Yes, the torture artist.
I loved Pat.
I know.
Little, like,
Yes.
his
I
like,
loved
acid
him.
spray bottle.
He was cute too.
And
He was
his little
cute.
headphones, and he was just so jolly about his job.
Yeah, he was so-
torturing people.
Yeah. He was a good character. That's like
I was sad to see him die, actually.
Yeah, agreed. That's like a nice scripted character where you're like, oh yeah, the writers came up with it. It's not in the comic book. He's not in the comic book.
But it's just, again, another perfectly thematic character where, like, even though he only has so much screen time, just the way that he delivers his lines and, the way the fight scene plays out and stuff, it just feels like that there's so much more story there.
Yeah.
That we're never gonna know. They're not gonna go back.
Yeah.
I
Bring him
doubt
back,
it.
yeah.
But it's just like, it just fits so perfectly. Like, here's this cool character. Pretty cool, huh? Now he's dead.
He could be alive. He got
That's
stabbed.
life.
He got stabbed through the stomach. He could be alive. Jesse didn't blow
He
his head off.
could
could be.
be like
Could be, yeah.
holding on.
That's a
to life.
that's a TV wound.
Yeah.
That's not immortal.
You're
That's-
right.
yeah.
You're right. But I'm just saying,
Great.
especially in terms of like, if we are really getting this road show, you want to feel like, even though you don't see all of these characters play out this whole arc, you want to feel like they really exist and they're real where they are.
Right.
So that, like, even if the trio leaves, in our minds things still happen. That's what makes us attach more to
Right.
them traveling to different places.
Well said. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But so yeah, we get this big fight. This big fight that is filmed to feel like it's supposed to be a single shot fight, but it's not. Right? I think we all can agree that there's cutting in that fight.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not a single shot. And
There's
it's
some cheats.
Yeah, it's entertaining. You mentioned this just off camera, but like when Jesse sees somebody putting something in his ears, he should have the sense at this point to just be like, "Stop what you're doing." But I get it. He was whacked in the head, so he was kind of like
I think he was. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
we'll give
didn't
him a
know he
little-
was out of it.
groggy.
Give him a disorientation pass.
Yeah.
But hope after this, if anybody visibly puts something in their ear in front of him and he still tries to use the word on them and is confused when it doesn't work, I'm going to get very upset.
Wouldn't he just be able to yell really loud too? Like probably if you yell loud enough, the guy will be able to hear you a little bit.
Yeah, because that's what I thought. They weren't like Bose.
Yeah.
Like, not that this show's sponsored by Bose,
Yeah.
but, or Sony, whatever.
They weren't the best.
They weren't like noise canceling
Yeah.
headphones. They were like little pod
Right.
things.
Yeah.
So, and I just flew, so I know that those don't work that well from babies crying. So yeah, but again, he was out of it. But
Right.
they're gonna have to think of some creative ways for him to not notice people have things in his ears, for us to. I agree with you, or that's gonna be old real quick.
Well, I mean, that's okay. So that's just a device in writing, and this is the classic version of a Superman, who's even a harder one to write about. But
it's like, how do we use kryptonite again?
yeah, when somebody has that like supernatural level of power, you have to find a way to thwart the power. So it's great that we have the Saint, who it doesn't work on for now anyway. But yeah, like this guy throwing on the headphones, I was like, this just isn't believable. Like, you should give me a better reason that Jesse's not using the voice, like he wants to fight him or something. Because like, come on, like he could have just yelled and he would have hurt him. But so yeah, I thought the fight was pretty sweet though. It's nice that we're getting a sweet fist fight every episode.
Yeah.
It's also nice that Tulip just kicks ass.
I think that's why I was a little disappointed, is because the fight last week was so good. It was
Right.
choreographed, like beat for beat. It was great. It was shot great. And this one, while it was very fun, the music was enjoyable.
Yeah.
The body swinging around and the arm getting chopped off and stuff was nice. It just didn't have the same energy. At least not like what I was looking for. I think my bar for fights is set so high for this show because they've consistently just been knocking it out of the park.
The fight in the pilot is actually sweet. The one in the
Yeah.
bar with Donnie.
Yes.
That's
Oh,
great.
that's great.
Yeah.
I liked it. I mean, I liked the way it was shot. Like even when he walked in the house, and it's like the zoom close up and everything. And so for me, I like the funniness of it, and I like that. What I like about this season is that but as somebody who loves humor, I love that they're showing you there's nothing that we can't make funny, and they keep impressing me with that.
Right.
And so, which didn't always happen in the first. So there was a lot more kind of brooding, and but also too, as somebody, I've been kind of like with Jesse this whole time. I'm like, dude, like. Okay, it was a little bit like da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. He was kind of trying to figure out,
Right.
oh, well. And I was kind of like, where's this badass? And so then it was nice for me to like, that he actually was a badass.
Right.
Yeah,
he ripped it out.
as I say, the whole episode, you're like, okay, Jesse, hit somebody, like, do something. And then this fight was fun, and it fit. That was, to me, it's like, yeah, it had some missteps, but it was fun, and it really fit the character.
And also, it's like, I don't think that Jesse was looking to necessarily use the word once he started fighting, because he didn't go to, like, try to rip the headphones off. I think he wanted to kick the guy's ass. I think that was, because that's how Jesse is.
That's true.
But
It's fun.
But
Well,
so then
that's-
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say that brings us to what we were talking about before with the love triangle of as interesting as I think it will be. Does Tulip share the same feelings for Cassie that Cassie has for her? Because I don't think so.
Oh, no.
It's just that it was that one-time thing, and that caring that he has for her that causes him to be concerned when they don't know where she is, that Jesse doesn't have, is almost like the exact thing that she's not into. She wants a guy to not worry about where she is and to, run in and beat up a bunch of dudes because that's what she likes.
Knock the door down.
Yeah,
Trap
and
her in the
that's-
bathroom.
No, yeah, I think like it's like when Rachel and Joey got together on Friends. Everybody knew that was a bad idea and wasn't going to last for like
watching
3
the show right now. Spoiler.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I'm a few years late, so.
But you always know it's Ross or Rachel, so there you go.
So this fight happens, and we get, Viktor gets choked out by Jesse, and then we find out that Viktor's the husband, and that pretty much ends the episode. So I suggest we get into spoilers and a little bit of comic booky predictions.
Okay.
Cool.
Let's do it.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
So I think the first thing we'll do here, guys, is just heads up. We're going to talk regular predictions, the non-spoilers, if anybody has any that are based entirely on the show, and we'll do a sign-off, just in case you're watching and you don't want to know anything. And then at the end, the very end, we'll spend a couple minutes doing discussion. And
Okay.
we're going to spoil it for you.
I know. I am gonna. That is, and we said this last week. That apparently you've told me though, if you want to get into the comic, it's not going to spoil the show. So
Yeah.
I mean, it may, when you finish it, there may be things that they will use, of course, but so for the way the show has gone, I don't feel like it will be.
But
like
my FOMO is going to overcompensate because I
and
just want to
there's
be part of
there's
your club.
Like all of the Tulip stuff is not in the book.
That's
so
great.
none of that could be spoiled.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Exactly.
and our space is totally different as far as the backstory and stuff that you get.
There's
Yeah,
only little
yeah,
bits and pieces
yeah.
thus far that
Yeah.
are. Oh, and the Saint is walking, but whatever.
Yeah.
We knew that. So so let's do any actual predictions that are based entirely on the show that we can get. I don't really. It's a difficult ask when you have read the books to make them that are entirely like.
Comic book spoilers.
Yeah, but I think my first one is that I don't think that Eugene is going to be in hell for too much longer. I get the feeling he's going to get out. I think they're using that storyline, and I think it's funny and it's fun. But I think somewhere in the middle of the season he's going to get back to Earth, and I think he's going to be a relevant part of the story.
The season,
Yeah.
I think, huh?
Yeah, I think definitely by the end of the season, because it's a good B story for humor, and it is fun to kind of guess who the other people are in hell, and I think they'll probably like reveal some of them, but kind of just give us time to stew with that, maybe an episode or two, and I think he'll be out.
It's comic relief.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't mention, I wrote a note. I love that Hitler was doing the filled out crossword. That's like one of the funniest parts of the whole episode, actually. Just like just brilliant.
And then he's like, I guess that's the point.
And the oral anal line.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Good one.
Oral and anal at the same time.
That was great.
Any predictions from you guys that are based solely on the show?
I mean, I kind of think I was going to talk about Eugene too, and that it's somebody just based on the show. I'm like, is Eugene going to become like a badass? Is he going to like end up? Because I don't know anything about the character, so it's like Eugene going to end up like ruling hell, like while or like being like, because I love this guy. I think he's like adorable, and I knew R's face, but I don't know if R's face is a villain. Like I totally am like, is he gonna be a bad guy now? Oh shoot, whatever. That's gonna be awesome if they do that.
Just make Hitler his bitch and just like
like that's what. And so when I kind of was thinking that, and then when he started kicking
South
Hitler,
Park territory.
Yeah, like I literally thought of when Danny McBride makes Channing Tatum
Yeah,
his
yeah.
bitch, and this is it. I was like, that's just
I almost said like Channing Tatum, but I was like,
Oh my. Something I didn't want to hear ever again.
All right, so anybody else, or should we do a quick...
We've got one in the chat, like Ringy90998. Maybe we'll meet a deaf person on the show, because that'll be somebody else that is kind of a fool.
Yeah.
And Supernatural has used that device, more than once about people.
They would be remiss if they didn't use that at some
exactly.
point. As far as show predictions, I think it's worth pointing out, like, remember the foreplay we saw with them before, with him busting down the door, and then they had hot, passionate love after that.
Right.
So now he has busted into this mansion with a bunch of armed guys and told a bunch of them to sit down and had a, limb fight with this guy, and bust into the room to save her, and you can't kill him, that's my husband. So, like, to see that polar opposite of, like, display of power, oh yeah, I'm so into you, to display of power, wait a minute, there's something I haven't told you. So I think, we saw a little bit in the preview of next week, I think it's gonna get dark and violent. I wonder think Jesse has some
I wonder what they're gonna do.
I
wonder what they're gonna do about the husband situation.
I think there is that. I think you're right though, because even the way Jesse took when she was like, Jesse, we can't get engaged, and he was kind of like, all right, well, okay, cool. And I was like, wow, he took that a lot better than I would. So I kind of think we're going to see some ramifications of him holding it in or something.
Yeah, he's going to be pretty upset maybe.
Well, it looks like in the teaser that he uses the word on her.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty...
That's not
which she hates. She does not like that. She does not like that.
All right, guys, let's do a quick sign-off and then discuss the comic books for a couple minutes. Lacretia, where can the folks find you?
Hey, guys, you can always find me at LACRETIALYON anywhere on the internet, since there is only one.
Thank goodness.
Matt Marr.
Cool. You can find me at the Matt Marr, 2 T's, 2 R's, or you can find me on our website at mattmarr.tv.
Nate Miller.
Guys, you can find me on social media at DogLikeNate.
And you guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter or Instagram or every single Wednesday on the Popcorn Talk Network talking about action movies and action movie anatomy. One movie every week, 106 weeks. Check that out. Let's do one more spoiler alert, and then we're going to talk about comic book stuff.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
And that first one off, I thought there was a problem. What happened?
So, guys, once again, this is your chance to turn it off, to turn off your phone or your podcast device or your YouTube if you don't want to hear this. But we're going to get straight into it, starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so I agree with you. It's too early to use the Tulip and Jesse device. The middle of the story in Preacher, where they think Jesse's dead and all that stuff happens, is such a compelling part of the story, and it's such a rich part of the story that I don't think you can go there so soon. And that's kind of what I mean about dropping the bomb so early in this, and that's why I was making those references, is like, that's such a significant event that it almost is gonna like supersede the other one we're talking about, like the event that ends up being the big thing, right? It's like almost like you didn't even need it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think as long as they pace it out, though, it could be very rewarding.
Yeah.
So I'm as much as I feel like they've kicked up the pace with a lot of things, I think we're just going to see more, 3 or 4 episode story arcs with the major arcs in between. So, like, for example, Eugene, I don't think that we will see him, definitely not out by mid-season, maybe by the end of season. I think more likely we just get more information on what's going on in hell and things of that nature, and maybe how he can get out or something like that, which we'll see the season after. But I think the Eugene thing is going to be much more drawn out, because it's I think we're going to see him really turn into Arseface.
Got it.
I was going to say something else too, but I don't remember.
Yeah, and I really like that they haven't name-dropped Arseface. It's like most of the other comic book shows, because all of us know who he is, and we like it. But at the same time, I like that they're not just immediately giving that, because it's sort of like we get to know this other character. Sort of like we did with Jesse, is we know Jesse Custer, but we sort of got to know different parts of him the way that they're writing it, and I think it's giving these characters a little bit more dimensionality for TV. And that's why I like the way that they've portrayed Cassidy in Tulip, and I don't want to see Cassidy go down the road that he does in the comics. And I'm just afraid with the way that they're setting up the love triangle, especially so soon, that we are going to get that.
I think we definitely are. It's just a question of how long, and I think a couple more seasons would have been nice. But maybe they'll dangle it now, and then they'll put it on hold for a while, and it'll come back. I don't know. Maybe that's what'll happen. So that's the major stuff that I wanted to talk about. Anything else for you guys that?
I read an article that the guy who plays the Saint gave an interview.
Yeah.
And there's a pretty big spoiler for the show.
Okay.
So I don't know if I should.
It's not a comic book spoiler.
It's not.
Leave it off then.
Okay.
Yeah, I think probably let the people if it's not comic book related, I think there's no need for us.
I agree.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that should do it. Unless you guys had anything you wanted to add.
I mean, I've never wanted to read a comic more in my life.
It's a great comic. It's my all-time favorite single comic book.
I know.
Yeah.
I watched the show before I was on.
Have you read Why the Last Man?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I love Ryan K. Vaughan stuff. And I think that's a great comic book. And it's amazing that hasn't turned into a show yet.
That has to happen.
They've worked on it for so long.
I'm sure it'll happen soon.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. It is AfterBuzz TV on a Monday night. We'll be here same time, same place next week to cover another episode of Preacher. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and have a great week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.